A group of warriors slinks through the ancient halls of a long-forgotten temple, driven to investigate a newly discovered site and its perspective on history. The group's mapmaker compares the quickly scribbled rendition of a nameless temple's halls to an ancient burial ground the group's patron had parted with. They found that their planning did not prepare them for the sickening stench of death that becomes more apparent the farther these heroes explore through a possibly massive crypt. Through piles of bones, hordes of rats, and shambling bodies that patrol the holy ground of a nameless god, our heroes manage to find their way to an entrance once clodded with rubble and corpses. It seems recently cleared out, and various subtle noises can be heard on the other side, accompanied by a faint and sickly purple light cast at the doorway's edge. After a peek, and then a subtle beam through the entrance to scout ahead, a heavily robed humanoid can be seen with his hands spread across the table like a general forming an assault. As the heroes quietly approach, the snap of bones under their feet announce their presence. Yet the being does not react. As silence overtakes the room once more, they hear subtle chanting leaving the creature's throat, in a language most familiar to the mapmaker regarding his studies with the beings from beyond this world. Most benign things indeed. In deep speech he calls out to Hadar, a prayer of strength and endurance.
The dark hunger shall never die. An eternal feast of all souls present themselves to you, my lord. Witness us as your devoted rend their earthly forms asunder. May their life force serve you always as the universe itself begins to yield to its eldest.
As the heroes raise their weapons and a mage amidst them blocks the entryway by resetting the blockage, the being turns from the table to face his quarry and removes the hood that masks the creature's rotting face. The creature beckons once more as dark energies begin to swirl around them.
Our master hungers, and I shall send unto him a righteous meal, more fuel for the flame. The sinister soul, cover before us.
Welcome back, everyone. It's good to have you all here for another episode of the Quiet Palace Podcast, where great legends prevail and evil wings to dust. Hopefully. I'm your host, the one lost in thought, more often than not, Fett, and today we're going to talk about a concept I find rare amongst a popular topic. There are many monster showcases you can find on this platform, and others that go into detail on the various options we have from the sum of the 5e books put together. However, if you're like me, you realize that not every single monster is going to be the hot topic of your favorite D&D YouTubers and the like. Deathlocks, and particularly Deathlock Wights, are a rarity it seems on this platform. Considering I like running them and I feel like someone out there somewhere would appreciate seeing this on their journey through the red play button, it shall be the first monster showcase that I bring to you all. I hope that you enjoy it. Amidst the eldritch powers whose influence seeps into our reality, or even among evil minds fascinated with necromancy, a servant is one of the most powerful tools to represent any ideal. Though a servant is one thing, those that work alongside these taboo entities may find that they are not so merciful if one does not live up to their eldritch patron's expectations. Sometimes, if the devil you struck a deal with is not satisfied with your work, you may return once more to oversee its completion, willing or not. In your reanimated form, your only drive becomes the end goal that you had in agreement with your master. A Deathlock often takes the form of a reanimated warlock or an undead given arcane powers by the necromancer that raised them. Whether it be a punishment or just a fate worse than death, a Deathlock only desires to serve their patron, and any part of who they were that did not align with just that would not be found within this twisted mind. The mind of a Deathlock, however, is still a powerful tool, as they themselves can gather servants and march onwards with the Master's goal in mind. With the understanding of their origin, let's dive into the details. What should you expect to see in regards to encountering one of these things in the D&D world? Your average Deathlock is a challenge rating of 4. Their physical stats are not the greatest, but considering they have immunity to the poisoned end, exhausted condition, immunity to poison damage, and resistant to non-silvered physical damage, or I guess non-magic as well, this really isn't going to be a problem unless your party has a grapple maniac. They are pretty resilient in regards to saving throws, having a +4 in intelligence and a +5 to your charisma saves, something expected from an undead warlock for sure. Their charisma, intelligence, and dex are fairly decent, so dodging and resisting certain spells are a stronger suit for this creature. So it may help more to make attack rolls over forcing saving throws. Their arcana and history are pretty good too, so if roleplay becomes a part of it, well, a monster may be able to identify different spells the party's casting to give themselves an edge. Their AC is not amazing. It's 12 without mage armor, but it's an at-will spell for them, which means they can cast it whenever. So if played right, we're talking an AC of 15 pretty much all the time. The creature has dark vision up to 60 feet and a passive perception of 11, so less than a subtle approach is likely to tip off this creature, even in the dark. In regards to spells, some of those are interchangeable, and that choice is up to you. You have the entire Warlock spell list for a 5th level Warlock that you can use in place of what they give you on the stat sheet. Eldritch Blast or Chill Touch could be useful if we end up needing our spell slots for something more important. Hellish Rebuke, Arms of Hadar, Armor of Agathis, Invisibility, and many others can really shine from any perspective you want to highlight. It depends on the patron, of course. If you want to flavor your Warlock to be the byproduct of an Archfey, then spells like Blink, Fairy Fire, Greater Invisibility, or Hypnotic Pattern might be ideal choices for your custom Deathlock spell list. Maybe be careful with Hypnotic Pattern, though. You can, of course, run a decent Deathlock going in with basic spells they give you, but it's nice to be easily able to swap out some things so that the monster's spells fit the influence of their patron, at least mostly. Alongside its spells, the Deathlock has a Deathly Claw attack that deals necrotic damage. That's really it, and it's not the most useful tool it has, but in close range it can be its best bet, especially if they're left with only cantrips. It can move 30 feet, which can be bolstered with Misty Step if you choose that spell for your Warlock, and an average of 36 HP, or 8d8s if you want to roll for it. All in all, the Deathlock is a resilient spellcaster that has a weakness against martial combat involving silvered or magic weapons. Or I guess, you know, regular cantrip spell combat too. You get the idea. Now, how do you run one of these things? That's always a good question. You know, they give you the stats, they give you the whole, you know, little bit of lore here and there, but what do you actually do with the darn thing? What's its goals? How does it align to you? We know that Deathlocks endlessly serve their patrons and strive for nothing more. In a sense, they are an echo of their patron, a voice that speaks within the slight bias of a mind that forms the words. After all, it's not Hadar we're having a stress-inducing chat with. It is one of the Hungry Star's most loyal servants. A Deathlock being hunted in their lair may hide, set traps, or tip off their servants and followers to patrol the area and be ready for your assault. Various undead, summons, and cultists may be found roaming the halls, whether they're ready for you or not. Magic traps may be found. Warding stones or other similar aspects might find their way to you if you're not careful. In the end, if they must defend themselves to continue their service, they would most likely do so until the last strike, but they may escape if they find that they're not able to defeat you or have larger plans in tow. Though they have their limits, if commanding zombie hordes and other various creatures at its side, a Deathlock can prove to be a formidable foe. If you meddle with their plans or are somehow involved in it, you will most likely be made a target for the Deathlock's constant and ruthless attacks. Cultists may come for you in the night, or demons flying overhead looking for you might swoop down in an attempt to neutralize you in the name of evil. The possibilities are fairly abundant. In regards to an encounter, an ideal one would be a Deathlock protected by his servants. A zombie horde or two, some cultist bruisers, or other occult spellcasters at the Deathlock side is enough to truly antagonize any party. Its body's to keep the party busy and less driven to attack the Deathlock so that the marshals in the party don't bring him down in round 1. Or at least if they do, then there's something else that can be done. If the Deathlock is singled out before they have a chance to regroup with their allotted numbers, distractions via spells, like teleportation, invisibility, and other similar resources can come into effect. If you can escape via a chase or some other means, it can prove to be an encounter your party becomes immensely immersed in. There happen to be other Deathlock types as well. We can quickly touch on those. A Deathlock mastermind is what you might find as the leader of a large cult. Since Deathlocks do maintain some aspect of their personality in this form, their ability to make plans remains unhindered so long as it is regarding to the best way to impact their master. They're a little wiser, a little more charismatic for all that it's worth, and they're slightly harder to hit, not to mention that they are a 10th level warlock and are considered a challenge rating 8 creature. This is a Deathlock who achieved much since their reanimation, and most certainly one not to be toiled with. More spells, and an added action, Grave Bolts. That's a good one. Basically a modified Eldritch Blast that does necrotic damage and can force a DC 16 strength save on the target that can restrain them for 1 minute. It is particularly spicy in regards to a unique boss battle for your story, or even just a side hustle that ends up being a lot more in depth than what the party had originally surmised. Then of course there is the Deathlock White. Necromancers and Lords of the Dead may take a plea of a warlock who has not fulfilled their end of the bargain just yet. That bargain, or pact, might be renewed upon his return by the means of undeath. Perhaps the eldritch being in question finds a wretched soul it does not pity and brings forth one of the worst punishments it could bestow on any mortal. It is of course possible that a skilled necromancer may gift a light with the mote of the necromancer's power. That creates a unique Deathlock with a more self-serving mechanic. A Deathlock White shall still serve its patron as fiercely as before, but it is not much more than the undead creature it became at the behest of unseen horrors. Though the Deathlock Whites have the Mastermind's Grave Bolt, as well as a Life Drain, making for a creature that does not focus too much on the spells it can cast, in favor of withering your party's life force or even taking pot shots with a Grave Bolt from up to 120 feet away. These creatures are susceptible to sunlight, and it will have disadvantage on attack rolls or perception checks that rely on sight. While this creature is not that much weaker than a regular Deathlock, the party may use light to give themselves an edge in the fight. Though the least berated servants bear no such weaknesses. The Deathlock is indeed an unsettling challenge for any party, as an undead spellcaster of any type can scream "Lich" to any seasoned veteran's ears, especially the ones who have maybe never dealt with Deathlocks in the past. There's lots of monsters amidst the 5e books. I'm certain there's plenty I've never experienced yet. Heck, I have never ran Displacer Beasts or encountered them as of today, so even the most common ones may not have seen too much action depending on the themes you partake in. The Deathlock to me seems like a powerful tool to instill fear in the party. It can say a lot at the end of the day, that any dead body can be brought back and used as more than a savage thrall. If your heroes find a terrible fate at the hands of a powerful evil, Deathlocks may be found defending that evil's place in the world. And if servants can be fashioned from bones and lost spirit at a whim, then the greatest and most devastating enemies can return once more until the light of dawn can seal them away forever. So that was today's episode, a rare monster showcase detailing a powerful and swayless servant of darkness that might rumble a table or two near you. Ultimately, I have run the Deathlock White once before, and the regular Deathlock as well. They can prove to be a formidable encounter if planned with servants in mind. On their own they're quite capable, but lack the ability to do much in melee range, unless you're running a Deathlock White. Against a mostly spellcaster party, this monster can prove to be a tough slog, as a boss fight in a dungeon, graveyard, or somewhere else that's just as lovely. With that being said, I hope that this episode has inspired the initiative to make a good fit of this creature in your campaigns. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this monster and its alternate forms. And if you like what you hear, feel free to hit subscribe and ring the bell if you'd like to hang around. There'll be more on the way. And if the sky is gray, and the breeze is gentle, the quiet palace shall be nearby.